started and everyone joins us, and I've had messages, please record it for me. That's what we have every week because everybody knows that we're here and everybody knows that we're going to record it and we're going to share. So I guess everybody just relies on all of that, but it's wonderful to have everybody here with us and wonderful to have Dr. Leslie Gutman here with us. Okay, and it's really a pleasure that you were able to join us all the way from Edgware on Zoom. And we've actually been this has been going, I don't know how many years. Thank you, Rebecca, for coming on Face. There we go, Naomi as well. Always wonderful, but it's lovely to have whoever can be with us, whether you on Face or not, we're happy to have you. And Gabrielle's back from the Holy Land. She's done the pilgrim walk before me. Oh my goodness, how blessed. So we are just very blessed that we have you here with us, because one of the things that our world needs today is a little bit of resilience. And we're going to be talking about practice the body, heart, and mind. So I'm just going to fill you in because I said we can't put too much on the flyer. So Dr. Leslie Gutman. Leslie is a professor of psychology and behavior change and a vice dean at the University College London, which I'll just say UCL because it's easier. Okay, she writes and speaks widely about resilience, mental health, and behavior change. She has over 100 academic papers and also writes for X.com. The newly released second edition of Resilience, Bouncing Forward with Jewish Wisdom and Psychology Science, is available on Zoom. And just so that you do know that you will have the full recording available to you with a handout, which will Dr. Gutman or Leslie will talk to us about. And it's all here for us. So in the meantime, relax and enjoy. And I might take you into the kitchen to think, but I've actually got my sourdough to just get mixed up also here. So there's no better way to do it than learning that it comes from inside out. So thank you for being with us.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you. So shall I get ready? Okay, great. Well, I'm really excited to talk tonight about the link between this week's Parsha and resilience. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what resilience is in a moment. But first, let's focus on this week's Parsha, which is Mishpatim. And it kind of begins in a surprising place. So after the thunder and the lightning and the billows of smoke and the shofar blast from last week, after all the drama, the revelation, and the awe at Sinai, the Torah then shifts abruptly into laws, and quite detailed laws, boundaries, responsibilities, and limits that really are focused on creating a society that is rooted in social justice and fairness and appropriate social and human relationships. And it's as if Hashem is telling us, okay, so this inspiration of Sinai can lift you, it can inspire you, but we need something more in our everyday lives to sustain us and to guide us. And really what sustains us, what guides us, is having a meaningful structure. And what protects us is purposeful boundaries. And that's really what this week's Parsha gives us. And if you think about it, it really makes complete sense at this stage in the game for the Jewish people. We've just become free after centuries of being enslaved, but freedom alone doesn't create our well-being. It doesn't make us happy or fulfilled. And freedom without structure can feel really overwhelming. And you can think about what summer break feels like with your children if you haven't put them into camps or created family vacations. Freedom without responsibility also makes us feel anxious. You know, we kind of feel purposefulness, like what's my purpose? What's my role? And freedom without boundaries can be complete chaos. And we've seen this too often in very clear and painful ways when we see riots, when we see protests, and extreme cases, of course, revolutions. So really, What the Torah gives us is a framework for living in a way that protects the body, honors our relationship, and clarifies the mind. And really, that's the heart of resilience. So, I want to talk for a few minutes about what resilience is and what it isn't. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about boundaries that we can create in order to build resilience in our lives. So, what exactly is resilience? Well, there are four really big misconceptions about resilience. And the first one is if you look up in a dictionary, you'll see the definition of resilience as bouncing back or recovering quickly. And when I hear these words, I think of a ball. And you throw a ball against the wall and it comes right back to you and it looks exactly the same. But we humans, we're not balls. And when we hit something hard, it hurts us and we experience pain and we change with the experience. But we also have the capacity to grow and to recover and heal and to rebuild. And I remember in November, I was in Israel at the Help Israel conference, and one of the hostages, Sasha, was speaking. He had been a hostage for about 500 days, and he was talking about when he went to therapy, all the therapists were trying to get him back to who he was before. And he said, that's an impossibility. I'm never going to go back to who I was before. And really, resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were before. It's about bouncing forward into who you can become. It's about taking all of that pain and what you experienced and becoming stronger and wiser. And the other myth about resilience is that people often think that it's a personality trait. It's something that some people are born with and other people aren't. And of course, the way our experiences, our personalities, how we were brought up, those do contribute to our resilience. They make some people maybe more naturally inclined to resilience, but really resilience is a skill. It's something that we learn throughout our lifetime, and it's something that we can all capable of. The other myth about resilience is oftentimes people think it's about being invulnerable. And resilience, that's not what it's about. I mean, it's not about forgetting your heartbreak or dismissing your sorrows. I mean, challenges and hardships are painful. It's about taking, those pain of our struggles and accepting them as part of ourselves. It's about creating a sense of oneness and coherence in our lives, both the good and the bad, and understanding what those have to teach us. And the last kind of point is that people think resilience is extraordinary. And we do read the most amazing stories of people, and we think, gosh, I could never do that. But that's also what research finds is that actually resilience is quite normal. It's something that we can all do. We're much more resilient than we believe we are. So, resilience is something that we can all work towards. And it's not an end goal. It's not something that we achieve once and for all. It's something that we cultivate in our daily practices. And these are through the boundaries that we set with our time and our energy and our relationships and even our own thoughts. So, through our daily habits, we regulate our emotions, we listen to our bodies, and we make choices about what we're going to carry and what we're not going to carry. And these are all practices that support our resilience and ultimately our mental health. So, what I want to do tonight, in line with Mishpatim, which I think about as the parsha of boundaries. Okay, we're getting boundaries and rules and limitations. And I want to look at three different types of boundaries that this parsha highlights: physical boundaries, relational boundaries, and cognitive boundaries or thought boundaries. And for each one, we're going to talk about that boundary and we're going to explore practical strategies that you can use right away to build resilience and to boost your mental health and well-being. And I want to highlight the reason that I'm giving you these strategies is because we learn through experience. So, for example, if you went to a talk on physical health, you might hear about how you need to eat clean, you need to exercise, you need to get enough sleep. But listening to that talk in and of itself is not going to make you healthy, right? You actually have to do those practices. And the same thing is true for your resilience. You can't read about boundaries and suddenly have them. You can't hear a talk about emotion regulation and suddenly feel calm. You have to rehearse these skills with your bodies, with your relationships, and in your daily life. And hopefully, you'll leave tonight with some practical tools that you can use to help build these boundaries. And I've created a handout that Joanne is going to pass along to you later so that you can remember the exercises and you can practice them at home in your own time in order to build your resilience. So let's begin with the first type of boundary that Mishpatim teaches us, and that's physical boundaries. So the Torah really spends a lot of time talking in this parsha about our bodies. So injury, rest, safety, and repair. And it's as if the Torah is kind of reminding us that the body is really our first boundary that we learn. And if we think about babies, this makes such perfect sense. Before they have a language, before they have identity, they have sensations, right? So long before we can regulate our emotions or our thinking, we're regulating things with our bodies. And oftentimes people think that the brain is the control center, right? Issuing orders to the body. But in reality, research finds that it's the opposite, that really the body is the primary informant. So about 80 to 90% of the vagus nerve's fibers carry information upward from the heart, the lungs, the gut, and the muscles to the brain. And what is the vagus nerve? The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the automatic nervous system. It runs from the brainstem through the face, the throat, the heart, the lungs, the diaphragm, and the gut. And it touches almost every single major organ. It's involved in motion, breathing, and digestion. Really, it's the main pathway for calming the body, slowing the heart rate, deepening the breath, and restoring equilibrium after stress. So essentially, it's our rest and restore nerve. So what that means is our emotional state, our sense of safety, our capacity for resilience all begins in the nervous system, okay? So what happens when our bodies are feeling overwhelmed? Our mind feels overwhelmed. What happens when our bodies feel grounded? Our minds can think clearly, we can make wise choices, and we can respond rather than react, right? So, one of the most important findings in trauma research is that the body keeps score. And what it means is not just out of pain, but also out of safety. So, if you've ever understood what our basic needs are, one of those is safety. And when we experience trauma, what happens to us? It's a complete lack of safety. And it shows this in our bodies. So when I was at this conference, it was very interesting because they showed videotapes of survivors from October 7th talking about their experiences. And you could see it right in their bodies. You could see it in their expressions, how they held their bodies, how they held their face, looking down, their eyebrow expression. Our pain, our trauma is in our bodies. And we know this from our own lives. Our nervous system is constantly keeping track of ourselves, asking, am I safe? Am I overwhelmed? Can I do this? So as if our nervous system tells us through these physical cues. And we have these physical cues. Our stomachs are rumbling, our heart's racing, our breathing shallows. And these are somatic feelings that we all experience. So, hold on a moment. But most of us have been trained to kind of override those cues, right? We push ourselves to exhaustion. We don't think about hunger or thirst. We experience discomfort all the time and we just silence it. We treat our bodies almost as if it's an obstacle to being productive, to doing everything that we want to do, rather than a source of wisdom or even just information. Yet, Mishpatim reminds us that the body matters, and injury requires repair, and rest is mandated, and harm must be acknowledged. So, really, what the Torah is doing is it's teaching us that physical boundaries are not indulgent. They are necessary and even commanded. And sometimes the problem isn't that we just ignore the body, it's also that we misinterpret it. So before we have experiences of performance or pressure, oftentimes we experience naturally activation in our body. We experience butterflies. We might have a faster heart rate. We might have warmth in our hands. And sometimes we say to ourselves that we read these sensations as danger, right? Oh, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it, right? Really, the body is telling ourselves that I'm getting you ready, right? I'm getting you ready for this. And as trained athletes, they take that bodily feeling, the sensation, and they use it to push themselves in order to achieve. And this is really why somatic boundaries matter, because when we engage in the next somatic exercise, we're going to be reminded to read our body's sensations accurately and to stop fighting it. We can shift from I'm in danger, I can't do this, to I'm activated and I can handle this. It's kind of a return to being more mindful and resilient presence. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce this first exercise, and this is the body exercise that you'll get in the handout. So I want you just to feel comfortable, and we'll go through this exercise together. And this somatic practice is called name, allow, notice. And it's very simple and gentle. And it's a practice that you can use anytime when you're feeling nervous, or you have a difficult conversation, or you're feeling overwhelmed. It's kind of just a way to reconnect with yourself. It's not about relaxation, it's simply about awareness. It's learning to listen to the body as a source of information. So make sure that you're sitting comfortable. And I want you just to notice your feet. I'm going to put my feet on the floor because I have my knees crossed. And I want you to notice your feet's contact with the floor. Notice the weight of your feet. And you don't have to change anything. Just notice it. This is really the first boundary that we're setting. That is the ground beneath you, okay? So now I want you to bring attention to your breath. Don't try to deepen it. Don't try to fix it. Just observe it. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it tight? Is it easy? Your breath is a messenger. It tells you how your nervous system is doing. Now let's scan from the inside, okay? Not from the outside. Notice in your body if you have places of tension, warmth, coolness, tightness, or ease. You're not trying to relax them or change them. You're simply acknowledging what's happening to my body in this moment. Now, what the first three steps teach us that is before we can repair, we have to notice. Before we can heal, we have to acknowledge our bodies. Okay? Now, we talked a little bit about the sensations that you were feeling in your body, and I want you to notice and name one of those. So choose one of those sensations, just one, and I want you to name it. Tightness in my shoulders, warmth in my head, in my hands, pressure in my head. That's always one that happens a lot. And the reason that it's so important to name this sensation is because Neuroscience shows that just naming a physical sensation reduces its intensity. The reason is because the prefrontal cortex, it brings it back online and it creates space between you and that feeling. Okay, so you've named that feeling, and now I want you just to allow it. And what I mean by that is I want you to allow the sensation to be there. Don't fight it. Don't try to change it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to approve of it. You don't have to fix it. Just let it be. Now, allowing this creates space for the body to finish what it started, to go in a full circle. It's a signal to the body that, okay, this sensation is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. It's not hurting me. And that awareness alone, it calms us down. It reduces our arousal. And this is really what resilience is all about. It's not about eliminating discomfort, but learning to stay present with the discomfort and allowing and not allowing it to overwhelm you. So, what we just practiced is a physical boundary. It's the ability to notice, well, what is happening inside my body before reacting to what is happening outside of my body. And this really is about somatic awareness. It's about being aware of what my body is telling me. And when we listen to the body, we're able to catch our stress earlier. We regulate our emotions more effectively, and we can make wiser choices. We become less reactive and more grounded and settled. Okay? So, like I said before, you'll get this daily practice, and it's something that you can use when you feel like you need it. So, we just talked about physical boundaries, and physical boundaries help us stay grounded in ourselves. But relational boundaries help us stay grounded with other people. And Mishpatim is full of relational wisdom. Laws about fairness, responsibility, consent, power, and protection of the vulnerable. So it's as if the Torah is now telling us that relationships can't thrive on this love alone, right? We need clarity, we need structure, and we need boundaries that help us feel safe. And really, this is exactly what modern psychology says as well. Healthy relationships are not boundaryless. They're full of boundaries, limits, and rules. And this enables us to stay connected without feeling overwhelmed and without losing ourselves, and basically without becoming a doormat. So, one of the biggest misconceptions really about these boundaries is that they create walls, right? And they push people away. But really, boundaries are what allow us to stay close to someone and feel safe. They create emotional safety. They protect our compassion and our empathy from turning into exhaustion and resentment. And we've all been there. And when I said, when you've said yes too many times, we end up feeling hurt, right? And sometimes we can feel bitter, and it can actually feel bitter beyond repair. So Mishpatim teaches us this beautifully, doesn't it? It distinguishes between what's intentional and what's accidental harm, between what's our responsibility towards others and what is not our responsibility. It teaches us that our responsibility has limits, that we are not limitless, and that relationships need a sense of clarity and defined roles in order to succeed and to thrive. So now what I want to do is to guide us through another exercise. And this is really about relational boundaries. And it's a little bit different. It's called the three fences. And it basically is very similar to the way Mishpatim builds protective structures around our lives. So for this exercise, if you have a piece of paper handy, and a pen, great. If not, just do it silently to yourself. And then this is something that you can do once you get the handout to think about it more fully. So let's first talk about that first fence, right? That's the inner fence. That's what protects your emotional core. This is the fence that's closest to you. It's the core of your being. So Mishpatim has rules to protect the vulnerable, doesn't it? And similarly, this fence protects the vulnerable parts of yourself. So I want you to ask yourself, and this is kind of a heavy duty question, is what do I need in a relationship to feel emotionally safe? And some examples might be honesty, predictability, a gentle tone, not feeling rushed, validation. And I want to give you a few seconds to think or to write about 3 to 5 of these needs that you have down, or consider them in your head. Now, what's important to stress is that these are not demands, okay? They're just truths about yourself. They're what's necessary for you to feel regulated, for you to feel connected, and for you to feel safe and to be really present in a relationship. And later, if you have time, you might reflect on, well, why are these important to me? And it might be from previous experiences that you had with other people, or it might be about your fears. So that's something to reflect on at a later point. So let's talk about the next fence. And this is really the middle fence, right? This is the fence that says, what can I offer without overextending myself? You might think of it as sort of the zone of healthy giving, right? So it's where your compassion meets your capacity. And Mishpatim teaches that we have responsibilities, but we can't be responsible for everything. So this fence protects us from over functioning and overdoing. So I want you to ask yourself, what can I offer to others that is generous but sustainable? And so examples of that might be, I can listen, but I can't absorb. I can help you, but I can't fix. I can be present, but I can't be present all the time. And if you're getting ready for Shabbos, you might say, I can make 2 desserts, but I can't make 4 desserts. That's just a joke. But anyway, so write down 3 to 5 things that you feel like you can offer people in a sense, but it's not going to overextend, something that's sustainable. So this is a fence kind of where relationships are able to flourish, when we're able to give ourselves to others in a place of fullness, but not a place of depletion. So the third fence is really that outer fence. It's the fence that says, okay, what is not my responsibility at all? And this third fence is what protects you from carrying what isn't yours, right? And Mishpatim is very clear about this. We're accountable for our own actions, but we can't be accountable for other people's actions. So I want you to ask yourself, what belongs outside of my fence? And these are things that I care about, but I'm not responsible for. So I can't be responsible for other people's reactions. I can't be responsible for other people's healings or their mood. So what are things that you can't be responsible for? You know, and these, you can make these more specific to your life. Other people's choices, the outcome of every situation, that's not within our control. And one thing to really consider here is that we care so deeply about other people, right? There's so many people that we love, but we're not in control of their individual choices. And we can try to help them and cheer them up, but it's up to them to make their own choices. So this fence isn't really, it's not about our failures. It's our acknowledgement that we're human and we're not infinite, right? So once you've done this exercise, you can take a few moments to think about your fences. And you can think about, well, what fences are the strongest and what are the weakest? And where do I need to build more? What do I need to strengthen? And this kind of acknowledges that our boundaries also are constantly shifting. Okay. So sometimes what we can tolerate at one point is something that we can't tolerate at another point. You know, and these relational boundaries, they need tending, adjusting, repairing, just like fences, and just like fences in Mishpatim. The more clearly we understand our own boundaries, the more fully that we can show up with other people, with authenticity and with real kindness. So we've explored physical boundaries and we've talked about the body as our first source of resilience. And we've explored relational boundaries. And these are structures that keep our relationships, our connections to others safe. But now I want to talk about a third kind of boundary. And this is the boundary that Mishpatim models so beautifully as well. It's called emotional boundaries. So physical boundaries, they protect our energy, right? They protect our body. And relational boundaries protect our relationships. But emotional boundaries, what do they protect? They protect our inner world, okay? Our thoughts, our feelings, and our reactions. They help us stay steady when life feels hectic and turbulent. And they help us respond with clarity rather than with confusion, right? So, what really are emotional boundaries? They're limits that protect our internal experience. And they help us distinguish between my feelings and someone else's feelings, my responsibility and someone else's responsibility, what I can control and what someone else can control, what's happening inside of me and what's happening around me. Okay? And without emotional boundaries, what happens to us? We're just basically like sponges, right? We're just soaking everything in, the good and the bad. And we become overwhelmed, right? We become overwhelmed with other people's moods, their expectations, their anxieties, and we lose our sense of self and our own center, who we are. But when we have emotional boundaries, we can stay connected, connected without being consumed. We can care without collapsing. And we can empathize with other people, but without over-identifying. Okay? Now, we're not born with emotional boundaries, and you can imagine
Is
that.
anybody else getting a crackle or is that me?
Oh, can you not hear?
That's better.
I also got a crackle.
You also have a what?
Oh, that's better. That's better.
Okay.
So
Is
we
it the
just
whole
had a little
talk
bit
or
of
just
we had a bit of
recently?
interference.
It's okay now.
Okay.
It was
Okay,
only
that's
for a
better.
moment.
Thank you.
Okay, where should I start then? Where was? Okay, so with emotional boundaries, we can stay connected without being consumed. And we can empathize basically without over-identifying with other people. Okay? So we aren't born with these emotional boundaries. And if you think about babies, they're really all about emotion, right? They're flooded by hunger, they're soothed by warmth. They have these physical needs that then are accompanied with emotions. Okay? Their inner and their outer world blur together. But over time, as we develop and we have the right kind of caregiving, we learn to separate my feelings from your feelings, my desires from your desires. And this is kind of the beginning of emotion regulation, the capacity to notice things without being overtaken. So I want to just highlight to you also that emotion regulation isn't about suppressing our feelings. It's about creating an internal space to feel them without being hijacked by them. So it's about noticing an emotion, naming it, and choosing how to respond. So, what are different ways that we respond when we have emotions? So, one way to respond is venting. And we've all been there, right? And that's just letting it all out. And that feels really good in the moment. But research shows that actually the opposite, it's kind of has the opposite effect than what we hope. It kind of ramps up our nervous system, it intensifies that emotion, and it also, leaves people around us feeling quite overwhelmed and stressed themselves, right? Another response that we often have is we ruminate. And what this means is we think about a situation or emotions associated with that situation over and over again. So we might replay the situation, we rehearse the feelings of hurt, and we start to spiral, right? We spiral in what if, why did I do this? What if I did this? And it doesn't resolve our emotion. It doesn't make us feel any better. It just actually amplifies the distress and the anxiety. And another type of emotion regulation really isn't about emotion at all. And again, you can see there's a lot of connection between emotion regulation and somatic awareness. Because sometimes what happens is actually it's our body talking to us, right? Everyone knows about hangry. Hunger shows up as being irritable. Exhaustion shows up as being sadness. We're dehydrated. That can lead to overwhelm. So it's about noticing when the body sends a signal and the mind tries to label it as an emotion to recognize, well, actually, no, that's a physical response. So, what are healthier, more active ways to emotionally regulate ourselves? And one of those is called positive reframing. Now, positive reframing is not about pretending everything is fine. So it's not positive toxic positivity, but rather allowing ourselves to notice maybe one small aspect of the situation that's workable, that's hopeful, or grounding. And letting those positive emotions kind of sit alongside the negative ones. Okay, it's not dichotomous. We can have both positive and negative at the same time. So, just kind of a superficial example of this is a few weeks ago, I was heating up some cholent and kugel on my hot plate, and I usually like to put the kugel, upside down to get the top nice and hot and crunchy. And so, what did I do? I did that instead with the cholent, and just, oil and everything went all over my hot plate and created a big mess. And so I noticed later, actually, when I was analyzing the situation, that my first response was, oh, great, now this means that the cholent is less oily. So it's just a very simple explanation or just example. But what it just shows is that we can get in the habit of looking for the positive in difficult situations. And that helps ease us and is very healing for us. Okay. But like I said before, all of this takes practice and it's a lifelong skill. So the more practice that we have, the more capacity that we build. So I want to just go through one more exercise about how to deal with emotion regulation. So these are emotion boundaries. And the name of the exercise is called Name, Frame, and Choose. Okay? So it's sort of another way of creating a space between yourself and your emotions. And it's not about pushing them away, but it's just about holding them with compassion. So I want you to think for a moment about a time when you felt emotional, okay? And you might have been stressed or irritated or anxious or overwhelmed or hurt. So nothing too big, just something small that's salient for you. Now I want you to silently name the emotion with one word that you were experiencing. Sad, angry, anxious, disappointed, overwhelmed, whatever comes to your mind, I want you to name that emotion. And the reason that this helps is because science shows that when we name an emotion, we reduce its intensity. It creates a boundary between I am this feeling, and I am noticing that I'm feeling this. Okay? So once you've named that emotion, I want you to frame it. Okay? And what I mean by that is to ask yourself, what triggered this feeling? Okay? How is my mind explaining this feeling? What's the story that my mind is giving? And what is this emotion based on something that was happening at that moment or is it based on something else? Now, you're not analyzing or judging yourself. You're simply placing this emotion in a frame. And what it does is it allows it to be separate. It contains it, so it's not spilling into every part of your life. And then the last kind of step in this exercise is to think, how can I respond to this now? Okay. And you might ask yourself, what's a wise, compassionate response that I can choose based on this emotion? You might just take a few deep breaths. You might clarify a misunderstanding with somebody. You might, back to the three fences, think about let go of something that's not yours to begin with. You might use positive reframing. You might self-care. You might say, actually, I need to take care of myself physically. And this exercise works because when we give that emotion a name and a frame, it makes our whole nervous system feel at ease, and it creates that space that we need to respond with intention that's so important rather than just reacting, right, without thought on autopilot. So I just want to return to where we began, and that's this week's Parsha. We discussed that after the revelation at Sinai, we received these boundaries, right? We received these laws. And basically, this is the architecture, the map of a healthy life. And we discussed how physical boundaries help us listen to our bodies. Relational boundaries help us stay connected without losing ourselves. And emotional boundaries help us respond with thought and clarity rather than with overwhelm. And when we practice these boundaries across our lifetime, we will build our resilience. And just like we return to the Parsha every week, the Mishpatim every year, we are going to practice these skills again and again and again. And just to remember that resilience is not a constant state. There are times where our boundaries feel strong, but there are other times when they don't feel so strong, where we feel, that we need to repair our boundaries. We need to repair our fences. So some days we feel grounded and other days we might feel scattered. And that's okay because that's normal. And this is where I want to briefly introduce how important it is to have that self-compassion. Because resilience is not about perfection. It's about the willingness to say, of course, this is hard. Of course, this is difficult. Of course, I'm struggling. That is human nature. I'm human. I'm infinite. I am finite. I'm not infinite. And self-compassion reminds us that our mistakes are not evidence of our failure, right? They're evidence of being human. Our failures don't isolate us. They connect us to others. And having self-compassion is really about acknowledging that our errors and our mistakes are really about life's learning, which is why we're here in the first place, isn't it? So to build resilience, we need to have these tools. We need to notice when we're stretched too thin. We need to pause before we say yes. We need to name what we feel so it doesn't take over ourselves. We need to remember that we have a body and we need to love our body for giving us life and allowing us to do mitzvahs and listening to our body because it has its own memory. It has its own wisdom about what's safe and good for us and what's not. So just as I finish today, I just want to offer this blessing to everyone that's here and everyone that's listening. I just want to say that may we learn to listen to our bodies accept what's within and beyond our responsibilities, and honor our emotions. May we build relationships spacious enough for honesty and strong enough for vulnerability. May we practice resilience in ways that feels good to us and supports those that we love. And may we feel connected to ourselves, to one another, to our people, and to Hashem. Thank you for listening.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. And certainly, I think everybody's going to go now and do that practice. So we will send the recording and send also make sure that we send you the download. So now, before we leave, we're going to make a bracha on our dough, and I'm going to share. I should have sent this to you before Needs, and then we could have shared it on the screen. But I'll share it on. I'll share it with you once we've said the bracha. Okay. I'm also going to say that, especially on resilience, we have my husband from Project Lily. We have a fundraiser now trying to help more and more people dealing with the times when people do have a bit of a challenge of a tumble or a stumble. And in Hashem, that we should all be able to be in a position where we all are able to help everybody and help Klal Yisrael and the Jewish people remain and be in a place that they really all want to be. And that's where we want to be. So we're waiting for our next stage in the world, and that will be going towards our beautiful clarity and, please God, very, very soon greeting Mashiach. So let's go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu la'afish chala min ha'isa harei zu chala. In the merit of this mitzvah of Hafashas Chala, that we should have refuahs, yeshuas, and hatzlacha on everybody's endeavors, on all of our challenges, and we should merit to be able to find that strength and to go with it and to build the resilience. And when we say something, and that's why I love it, when you say, it's true, you don't want to go do 360, you want to do 180. So we get to the other side and we get there feeling strengthened and to be able to go forward. So when I always speak about the visualization of what we are trying to do when we make our bracha, and when we say, this is really what I mean. And I created this myself on AI and very happy and proud of it. This is our visualization of taking our challahs to the Kohanim by the Beis HaMikdash, and Be'ezrat Hashem, that will be something that we're all going to do very, very soon. So wishing everybody a Shabbat of Shalom, a good Shabbos, and a growing, developed me, and for each and every one of you the same way. Okay. Thank you for sharing the file, and I gave it to Neets as well, so we will send that out with everybody. And thank you all for being with us. Good Shabbos.